Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about quitting my job. Now this isn't going to be a particularly exciting video, it's just going to be, I guess, informational for the most part. So with that being said, let's just get right into it. If you guys don't know, I have a bunch of different hats that I wear. So my main quote-unquote occupation would be car journalist. I basically review cars for a living, but there's a lot that has to happen for me to post these car reviews. So first off, I have to get access to the cars. Now one of the ways I get access to cars is by, well, simply buying them. So I have this TRX, I also have the Raptor, and then I have another vehicle, it's a Jeep Wrangler, but that one's getting wrapped right now. And so that's one of the ways I can get access to cars. The other way is I work with a bunch of dealerships. So there's a bunch of networking that has to happen for me to get access to dealership cars. I also work with the automakers as well, so there's a bunch of networking that has to happen there. And so that's how I get access to the cars. And so that's part of my job, right, is, doing all this networking to get access to vehicles. And then obviously the other hat I wear is I film all the videos myself. I also edit all the videos myself. I post them. I do all the marketing, everything that's associated with the channel I do. So there's pretty much 12 different, I think I counted up one time, there's 12 different jobs that I'm doing simultaneously. And that's why if you look at a channel, or sorry, network of channels rather, like TFL, they literally have 12 or 13 people doing that whole thing. And I'm crazy enough to do it by myself. I don't know why, but that's why we're kind of talking about things in today's video. So the last time I filmed a video in the garage, I actually had the Raptor set as the tripod and the TRX was behind me, but now we've flip-flopped, so it's kind of funny. I do need to put a couple disclaimers before we dive into this. First disclaimer, I'm not quitting YouTube. I'm talking about quitting some of the roles that I perform that are associated with YouTube, and then obviously Facebook as well, because I post videos on both platforms. So got to put that out there. And then the other thing is, this is not going to happen anytime soon. I have to plan for months, potentially over a year, before I actually implement any of this. And so I just figured I needed to put out those disclaimers so that people don't get confused on any of that. And so now let's kind of dive into it. So like I said earlier in the video, I'm doing so many different jobs at once. And I'm going to use TFL as a way to basically explain this, because I feel like they've done a really good job with scaling up their business and just branching out overall. So right now, TFL has, I think, 13 or 14 people on the team, and that is the group of people that are running that network. Now that network gets about 12 to 15 million views a month. It varies, right? There's going to be seasonal changes and all that kind of stuff. And so just to kind of give you guys an idea of how that compares to my channel, I get about 3.5 to 4 million views a month on the YouTube channel, and then on the Facebook page, I get another, depending on the month, 2 to 4 million views on Facebook. Which sounds great, right? If you do the math, you're like, oh, you're getting about half as many views as what 12 or 13 people are on a whole network of channels, and you're doing this all by yourself. And yeah, take a step back for a second. First off, Facebook views aren't as good as YouTube views. Sorry if you're watching this via Facebook, but how Facebook has their ads set up, it's just not exactly the best structure. And so there's not nearly as much money to be made on Facebook as YouTube. Just to give you guys an idea of how much of a difference it is, off of 3.5 million views on Facebook, you could probably make about the same amount of money on 250 to 500,000 views on YouTube, roughly. Somewhere in that, it varies, right? But somewhere in that range. So it's that much of a difference between both of the platforms. And so and that's how I look at things. I don't look at things in terms of the raw view numbers. I look at them from a monetary perspective. And so when I look at my Facebook page plus my YouTube channel, I see it as the Facebook page, even if it's adding several million views a month, I'm like, oh, it's only actually adding 250 to 500,000 views a month from a monetary perspective. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But anyways, the point that I'm trying to make is, if I want to scale up at this point, I probably have to hire on people, because there's not much more that I can do as a single individual running this car review business. And so there's two different routes that I can take. There's a traditional route where I basically just hire out people to do different jobs that I don't need to be doing. So for example, the creation of thumbnails, the editing of the videos, the creation of titles, all that kind of stuff, right? I might need to go through and just make sure that those are good before videos are posted, but I don't necessarily need to be the person creating those, because they don't require my voice, right? They don't require my face, because ultimately the only thing that requires that is the filming, right? When I'm going and filming a car, that's what requires me. Again, if you look at TFL, right? You look at the videos that Andre is in, for example, right? All that he has to really do with those videos is just make sure that he is there for the filming of the car, and then he's there in the thumbnails that they have with him, and then that's it. And then someone can go and, you know, edit that thumbnail, and they can edit the title for the video and the description and the tags and the video itself and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that makes sense, right? So that's the traditional route that I could take, is just hire people to do jobs that I don't necessarily want to do. Now, the untraditional route that I am considering more than that is to actually create more independent, well, semi-independent car journalists, especially here in Utah. So if you guys don't know how I've basically built up this channel, is I have a network right now of about 30 plus, well, it's way over 30 dealerships at this point. And because I have a network of over 30 dealerships that I work with, I have access to a ton of cars. And so what that means is I can use this access to build out different channels that don't exist at this point. So the thing I've been thinking about over the last few weeks is potentially training several automotive journalists. I know this sounds weird, but hear me out. So a limiting factor that I see with a bunch of different YouTube channels, including mine, is the fact that people are going to go and watch multiple videos on the same vehicle to get different opinions. And here's why that's a limiting factor. Is, let's say that one person goes and watches my video, and then Rady's Ride's video, and then TFL's video, and then Doug DeMiro's video, for example. Well, that person just basically gave YouTube 5 different views, but I only got one of those views. And I see that as a limiting factor. So if I go and I partner up with, you know, 2 to 4 people, and I give them access to cars, and I train them to be an automotive journalist, I now have more opinions. And not only do I have more opinions, but those opinions aren't tied to the Ben Hardy name, right? I wouldn't have like a, you know, Ben Hardy, like what TFL does, where they have a TFL off-road and they have a TFL cars and all that kind of stuff. And that's great when you're building up a big network. Like, I think that business model is amazing. But I'm also going and seeing, okay, if I do this in a non-traditional way and I have, you know, 2 other names, or, you know, up to 4 other names that aren't Ben Hardy, that are reviewing the same cars that I'm reviewing or similar cars to what I'm reviewing, right? It'd be kind of weird to walk into a dealership with like 4 people and be like, hey, we're gonna need your car for the next 5 hours so we can all get a review on it. That'd be crazy. But the point that I'm trying to make is I would then give myself more opinions to then post on YouTube. And so then I would be able to capture more of these views, right? Of these people that are going and watching several different videos on the same car to get these different opinions. And the way that I kind of came to this like whole conclusion is in my own research, right? There are certain vehicles that I can't get access to because they're not for sale in the US, or, you know, maybe they're just really hard to get access to, that I watch reviews on just to see reviews. And I find myself going from, you know, different channels to get different people's opinions, and I'm like, huh, that's kind of interesting. And so that's kind of like the whole idea behind this. Now, I'm sure you guys have several questions. First off, why would anyone want to partner up with me? And the reason why someone would want to partner up with me is because I have access, which is extremely difficult to get. I have spent several years building these relationships with, you know, over 30 dealers here in Utah, which is super difficult to get. And so I have so much access to cars. And because I have so much access to cars, I have so much access to content, which is what a lot of people need to get their like automotive journalism career up and going. And so I have that going for me, right? And then I also have cars coming from the automakers. And the thing that's funny about the thing that's funny about Utah is that Utah needs more automotive journalists. And so I would actually be able to get more cars into Utah if I trained more automotive journalists. Now, the other thing is, again, the training aspect, right? I would basically be trading the equivalent of like a, you know, $50,000 to $100,000 college degree for a business partnership in a company where someone, you know, as soon as the channel's monetized, that person's making money and they're not going to be in tons of, you know, debt like they would be if they did the traditional automotive journalism path where they went to school, got a journalism degree, and then went and worked for, you know, one of the major magazines and all that kind of stuff, writing car articles, right? So that's the other part, is it's saving that person a massive amount of money, and it's actually training them and having them work in the career that they would actually be working in. So that's another benefit to it. And so I hope that answers those 2 questions. And I think those are like the main ones that people probably have. On the surface, this sounds like an amazing plan, right? I would help several people build out careers and make a living for themselves. And on top of that, I would frankly probably make more money myself because I'd be part owner in all these different channels. And like I said, I don't think that these channels would steal views from my main channel, because ultimately it would just be people going and getting different opinions. Like I said, whenever there are new car review channels, other car review channels don't really go down in views. Everyone just kind of stays the same, if that makes sense. So I think it would just be beneficial overall. But there are some downsides to this whole plan. So the first downside is finding the right people. Now, there are several people that I already have in mind that I think would be a really good fit for this particular position. That being said, though, I don't know if these people would say yes, first off, so that's the first thing. But, just finding the right people to do something, especially in today's, job market, everything is always a difficult task. But I think that, this being a position that would be someone being like part owner and, a company basically, and being helped out as much as I'd be helping them out, I think that it would be something that a lot of people would just say yes to, right? So I don't think that's going to be too much of a hurdle, but right, finding the right people always is, something that's difficult. And the next thing is actually getting access to manufacturer cars. So dealership cars, I don't think are going to be an issue, but manufacturer cars, I think there's going to be a little bit of a hurdle because I'll have to get these channels up and running to where they're getting enough views and they have enough subscribers that the manufacturers are willing to send them out a car for a week at a time with, a 500-mile allocation. That being said, though, I don't think this is going to be a massive hurdle because I think getting to 10,000 subscribers in today's world, if people have access to the right cars, is not terribly difficult, especially with my knowledge on SEO and with titles and with thumbnails and all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure I could figure it out at a pretty quick rate to be able to get these people up to have a decent subscriber count to where manufacturers are going to send cars out. And on top of that, manufacturers actually want to send more cars out to Utah, but there's not enough journalists here in Utah. And so I would be solving that issue, right? I would give the manufacturers 2 to 4 journalists that they don't have already. So that's definitely another thing. So again, it's a hurdle, but I don't think it's that big of a hurdle. Now, the next thing is getting in with dealerships with these people. Now, like I said, I don't think this is going to be too difficult because the dealerships know they can trust me. And I think a lot of dealerships are probably going to like it more than not like it, if that makes sense, because it's going to be more exposure for the dealerships. Because right now, I'm only one person. I can only film so many vehicles and so many videos. And so I can only give these dealerships so much exposure. But if there was, 2 more of me or 4 more of me, frankly, then I would be able to get these dealerships completely covered from an inventory perspective, where they would be able to have, all the cars that they need to be filmed. And so they would be able to get as much online exposure as they would need. And obviously, I would continue to run my business model as free to the dealerships. There's no point in charging them. I would want to solely run it off of the, YouTube ad revenue and then sponsorships and all that kind of stuff, because I think that's the best way to scale up a business. And so I think it wouldn't be too difficult. But again, there's some things with like liability, for example, that could kind of get in the way, because again, dealerships know that they can trust me to not go and crash their car. And so convincing them that to let, other people go and interact with their cars and not crash them, right? That's a whole nother thing. But I think the way to get around that is to just have these people do walkarounds and no test driving. I think if I run the business like that with these side channels, then it's going to be so low liability for the dealerships that it's just, again, extra exposure, and it just will make logical sense. And then the last negative thing is, obviously this would take quite a bit of time out of my schedule initially. And so it'd be very difficult for me to get it up and running initially. But then once it's running, right, it's running. And it wouldn't be as time consuming for me, but like the initial, like finding people, training the people, getting them integrated into the dealership network and getting them integrated into the manufacturer network is going to be a massive, massive undertaking. And so it would be a lot of work. And so it would probably detract from the main channel. I probably wouldn't be able to film as many reviews as I'm filming. I probably wouldn't be able to, just post as many videos as I'm posting. And so there is definitely that downside as well. Overall, I think this is a pretty decent idea. Emphasize on decent. But obviously there's a lot of stuff that would have to be figured out before I could implement any of this. But I'm sure you guys will let me know what you think about it overall. Like I said, I think it's an okay idea. It's like I'll give it a score of like 7 out of 10. So it's a little bit above average, but it's not like a 10 out of 10 where it's like the greatest idea ever. But like I said, I don't think there's some things that have to be ironed out, but I don't think it would be too difficult, especially for the people that would be filming these videos, because with the setup that I have and with the regions that I would have these people cover, I basically just have these people posting one review video a day, which means that these people wouldn't have to do this full time. They could do this as like a part-time gig. And that's what I did with the YouTube channel for a long time, where I was posting one review video a day, which sounds like a lot on the surface. But you can film 7 reviews in one day, no problem. If you wake up early enough and if you just go from dealership to dealership, you can get 7 videos filmed in one day, no problem. And then you just edit and post them throughout the week, and then you do whatever you have to do for the rest of the week. And so I don't think it would be such a massive workload that these people would not be able to handle it. And I don't know. I'll think about it a lot, but let me know what you guys think about this whole idea. And with that being said, I'll see all of you in the next video.